Was your favorite music phase a government psyop? I hate to break it to you, but if you grew up listening to bands like Taking Back Sunday, Brand New, The Used, My Chemical Romance, Senses Fail, From First to Last, All American Rejects, Coheed and Cambria, especially if you grew up to be an adult that has also suffered from mental illness and neurodivergence, well, then it just might have been. Today, I want to explore some of our early programming and its connection to some sketchy things that have happened over the years and our roots with certain programs that were rolled out by our own government and our own school systems, like the DARE program, for example, the GATE program. But this one's not so much related to GATE as it is related to all people. So let's get into it. First of all, let's just take a look at some of these popular bands names that I just mentioned and how they make you feel when you hear those words or when you hear the name of the band. So for example, Taking Back Sunday, Taking Back God's Holy Day. Senses Fail, my senses are no longer working. Does that mean I can't think for myself? Smile, empty soul, I have an empty soul. The Used, whew, I'm feeling very used right now. From First to Last, that one hits home because I'm a former GATE kid who grew up to be a neurodivergent adult. Definitely was first in childhood and last as an adult. Coheed and Cambria, which is rumored to be based on a science fiction story, or not rumored, it says on Wikipedia that the band's name, Coheed and Cambria, is from a science fiction novel. And I had heard through the grapevine, I don't know if this is true, but somebody told me that Coheed and Cambria is about mind control. I don't know if that's verified though, so take that one with a grain of salt. But My Chemical Romance, did anyone else grow up with quite a relationship with antidepressants or sleep medicine or synthetic marijuana? Oh man, I could go on and on. Fall Out Boy, is that like nuclear fallout, kind of like promoting a possible upcoming apocalypse? Brand New, I don't really see anything too negative about that band's name. I'm sure you guys can help me out in the comments though, and I think we should play a fun game. I just want to know, what emo bands do you remember? Oh, I thought of another one, Avenged Sevenfold. What bands do you remember listening to and growing up on? And can you just do me a solid and put their band names in the comments? Like the worse, the better. You know what I'm saying? Like the worst and more negative the band name, the better for this episode. And then I also want to do something fun, like explore the lyrics. So if you have any lyrics to share that might kind of confirm what I'm saying, go along with what I'm saying about the mind control, because what I want to talk about when it comes to music is that when we listen to music, not only does it make us feel a certain way, music is also very repetitive. And I'm going to give you a quick example. I was actually watching a video on Facebook the other day, and something about Jesus Christ Superstar came up. Like, it was literally just a reel of, is it Adam Lambert and that girl that played in Wicked? They were singing, and I heard this song for the first time ever for like 30 seconds, not even 30 seconds. I don't even know if it got 30 seconds of my attention. But when I turned off that reel, I started replaying that song in my head that I had never heard before, didn't care about. So that's what I'm talking about though. Music can be very catchy depending on the melody, the words in it, and most songs are like chants. We repeat words. There was one I was thinking about, Taking Back Sunday. I hope I don't forget it. There's this one song that was kind of dark, and something about settling. Close your eyes and settle, close your eyes and settle. I don't think that was the right melody, but yeah, I remember the song lyric was close your eyes and settle, close your eyes and settle. And that song is about somebody, I think it's about somebody that cheated on him. Oh no, that's called 10 Years Under the Influence. Okay, sorry, I just blew my own mind, okay? And going back to the DARE program, I did an episode about a week or so ago about the DARE program, and I found some interesting things, to say the least, in that episode. Not only was the guy that co-founded the DARE program, Daryl Gates. I thought that was interesting that his last name was Gates, by the way, considering Gateway Tapes and the GATE program and Project Stargate and the Gateway, DRUGS, the Gateway, yeah, I don't know if I can say that, guys. Sorry, I'm trying to be respectful to my audience here. But Daryl Gates founded the DARE program, and that was sometime in I think it was 83. And they had an internal spying unit. They got mixed up in the riots in the 90s. And I think he got sued. For that internal investigation unit. He also created the SWAT team. So like people, I don't know what all SWAT does besides hostage negotiations, but I'm sure there's been sketchy stuff with that. Like SWAT teams can just come to your house. I don't know. They probably need a warrant, right? They probably need a warrant. So that just whatever. I'm just saying that there's some sketchy stuff going on with that. And then there's an overwhelming amount of evidence that the DARE program did not work and did not keep children off of drugs. So not only were we primed in early childhood as young children, like most, I remember the program, I think they came in to my school in 4th grade. I remember for sure they were there in 6th grade, but I'm like 99% sure they also came in elementary school. So that's so young. And then there's also, basically the officers were trying to get children to tattletale on their adults who were using. And we had little suggestion boxes where you could leave, as a child, you could leave an anonymous claim about somebody who might have been using. So all of that to say, we were primed in childhood to be abusers of substances, and then we grow up listening to emo music. I mean, is anyone watching this video, like, did anybody not have an emo phase? Because let's talk about it for a second. Emo music, you also had black nail polish, you also wore black jeans, you wore checkered belts, which is interesting because that's Freemason and Illuminati symbolism right there. You have, black everything, which is often, the color black, that's a very blanket statement to say black is associated with Satanism. But if you look at the overall aesthetic, it was a little more dark, just to be fair. But the most concerning thing about the whole emo music was what we were glorifying in that music. And what emo music was, it's called emo because it made you emotional. And I don't know if you guys are anything like me, but I can only use myself, this is from my own experience. I don't remember being a depressed child. I don't remember ever struggling with depression, period, until I was about 14. Now, I had mono when I was 14, and I missed about 3 weeks of school. And I was also staying in a bedroom by myself for like 3 months because I was very sick and very weak, and I got poked and prodded with needles. Like my blood count was low. I got pretty sick from it. But I missed like almost a month of school, and I remember spending about like that whole month just in bed sick, and I had light blue walls, and I would listen to Savage Garden on repeat and Bright Eyes. That's another band. I can't believe I didn't mention Bright Eyes yet, because Bright Eyes is like the king for sad, depressing lyrics and glorification of substance abuse. And, let's just like talk about some lyrics as an example. I want a lover I don't have to love. I want a girl that's so drunk she doesn't talk. Here's the kid with the chemicals. I thought he said to meet him here, but I'm not sure. I got the money if you got the time. He said it feels good. I said I'll give it a try. Let's see. Oh man, there's so many lyrics I was thinking about while I was pre-planning the content for this video. I'm sure you can help me out. You're looking skinny like a model with your eyes all painted black. Just keep going to the bathroom. Always say you'll be right back. Well, it takes one to know one, kid. I think you got it bad. What's so easy in the moonlight in the morning? Such a drag. I was living in a devil town. Didn't know it was a devil town. Oh God, it really brings me down in the devil town. There's lines in Don't Walk Away where he sells his soul. So I'm making a deal with the devils of fame, saying don't walk away. That might not be the right lyric, but I know I'm making a deal with the devils of fame. So that, primed us to also associate fame with making a deal with the devil. And I don't think he's wrong about that. Maybe he was telling us in plain sight, like, what happens. And now look at all the stuff coming out in Hollywood. What's happening? Like, I want to jump ahead real quick to some of these record disputes, because since I'm on the subject of devils of fame, I mean, let's look at Universal Music Group, for example, who owns Interscope Records, who represents Diddy, Marilyn Manson, who was charged, or who had all that controversy with all of the women coming forward to accuse him of assault. Then we've got Cassie and Diddy. We got 50 Cent. I don't know if he's been associated with much controversy. Katy Perry, though, I mean, all the people out there who, you know, her glitching eye and Illuminati symbolism in her music videos. And then you've got, oh man, there's another one, Madonna. Like, oh man, Madonna talked about Satanism, and she ran a charity or something for children in Africa, and there were rumors. I'm not making any accusations, I'm just repeating what I've heard on the internet. So, you know, rumored that a lot of these celebrities who have charities overseas, especially, you know, do it to appear to be good, but they're actually doing nefarious things. And an example of Satanists being connected with child trafficking, for example, is Michael Aquino, who had connections to founding the GATE program, which I've mentioned in my other videos. But Michael Aquino was a known Satanist who left the Church of Satanism to found his own Temple of Set, which is an offshoot of Satanism. And he got accused in the 90s by like tons and tons of children who were able to identify his face with claims of SRA. So, okay, if Madonna's anything like that when she talks about or references some of that stuff in her videos and her music videos, she has a song called Illuminati. I mean, and then Illuminati is, I think, founded by Freemasons, right? I don't know. And yeah, Freemasons do not worship, to my knowledge, everything I've been told, and there's tons of videos you can watch here on YouTube that educate you about Freemasonry, where there are not actually worshiping the God above, but the God of this world, who's also been called Satan or Lucifer, I believe. Okay, but anyways, that's not what this is about so much. I'm not making any accusations, because this video is for fun and entertainment purposes only, and it's only to make you think. So if you want to go look up your own information, go do your own research. Don't make me the expert on this. I'm just kind of connecting the dots for you and connecting thought to thought. So anyways, Universal Music Group, obviously, and Interscope Records have been involved in a lot of controversies. And how fun is this? In 2010 and 2011, they actually got in trouble because there was an apparent drug trafficking hub going on. And of course, they could not find a connection with any of the artists there. Interscope Records said, I didn't know people were trafficking drugs in our location. So that's interesting. And then another thing is that Interscope, I think they got access to Death Row Records, and they're involved in the gangster rap controversy. And they've also been accused of leaking records early, of editing records by artists for more mainstream appeal. MIA, their album was put on hold for being too positive. Die Antwood album was reworked for mainstream appeal. And then not to mention the Marilyn Manson and all the accusations about him. So you can see some of the controversy Universal Music Group has, or its offshoots and parent or sibling companies, whatever, child companies. They've been involved in a lot of controversy, not to mention they represent Diddy. All right. And then we've got, going back to the emo music phase, Victory Records was a big one back then. And turns out that a lot of bands that were with Victory Records also ended up with lawsuits against them. So for example, Thursday had some things to say about how they did not pay their artists royalties. Atreyu also had some negative things to say. They had negative issues with the founder for his scummy ways. The band Aiden said they were not paid for like $500,000 or 500,000 copies of their records or something. Hawthorne Heights had a lawsuit. A Day to Remember had a lawsuit. And then we get into Universal Records. Let's see. Taking Back Sunday, I believe, was on Victory Records. And then they also, see, what I found doing my research, they were not only involved in like one record label, a lot of these big bands that we knew and grew up on were kind of hopping around to different labels. And a lot of these labels were part of the bigger parent companies like Universal Records, Warner Brothers Music, those were like the two main ones. And of course, Warner Brothers music, there's so much controversy with that too. And I did not write it down, and now I'm getting information overload, but I'm sure you could do your own simple Google search and see the kind of controversies that Warner Brothers, pictures or records or otherwise, have been involved with, including, I believe, there was a lot of, oh yeah, now I remember when I was reading about Warner Brothers music, I think there were a lot of lawsuits where people there was like alleged abuse with the executives in the company, but a lot of them signed NDAs, so they couldn't talk about it publicly. So a lot of this stuff was happening behind the scenes, and now I think it was Warner Brothers who they've got, somebody's trying to do like an investigation and get them to release a lot of these lawsuits and make it available to the public, because they had a lot of stuff that they made people sign NDAs so they couldn't talk about the abuse. All right, so now that we've gotten all that out of the way, you can kind of see how a lot of this mainstream music is pushed out by these record companies who are often accused of abuse or involved in some kind of controversy. Now let's go back to the lyrics I had mentioned earlier. So whether that was all the Bright Eyes lyrics that I mentioned, some of my favorite lyrics are from Brand New, who I love dearly, despite the fact that they may have turned me into a mind control slave. And again, not blaming them, because I believe a lot of these artists were puppets and controlled by these record companies. But anyways, some Brand New lyrics. Barely conscious in the door where you stand. My tongue will taste of gin and malicious intent. Bring you back to the bar, get you out of the cold. A sober, straight face gets you out of your clothes. And they're scared that we know all the lies that they commit, all the crimes they'll commit, who they'll kiss before they get home. I will lie awake and lie for fun and fake the way I hold you, let you fall for every empty word I say. And Taking Back Sunday. Oh, how's it go? And will you tell all your friends you've got your gun to my head? This all was only wishful thinking. This all was only wishful thinking. And will you tell all your friends you've got your to my head? This all was only wishful thinking. Okay, how violent? Okay, we want to accuse the gangster rappers of talking about violence, but let's not forget what was going on in the emo music scene. Okay, so we've got a lot of unrequited love and a lot of cheating. Taking Back Sunday. Your lipstick is colored. Don't bother, Angel. I know exactly what goes on. Close your eyes, just settle, like AKA just settle for anybody that you get. And now let's just look at all the stuff that's happening, like OnlyFans being legal and just people getting paid for showing behind the scenes of their lives. And then we've got the hookup culture in the millennials, feminism, it's empowering to just knock up those bodies, right guys? No, it's not. It's actually slowly eating away at your soul. At least it was for me when I got brainwashed during a certain period of my life, as I was listening to all this stuff and just partaking in regular things that everybody else was doing. Like, it was normal to go have some drinks before a concert, right? And not to mention, like I said earlier, I think a lot of us were primed to try these substances that they mentioned because it's something known as reverse psychology. They put it in our minds, and my favorite example of this is like, if you're on a diet and somebody said, don't eat a cookie, and you're always obsessing about what you can't eat, what are you thinking about? You're thinking about the dang cookie. So if we're being told constantly, don't do substances, we're thinking about it, and we're thinking about trying it. And of course, there's so many kids who are rebels, and then we're like, ooh, I'm a kid. I'm going to rebel against my parents when I'm hit puberty, because that's what pubescent children or post or during puberty kids do, right? We experiment and we rebel. And emo music, punk rock, anti-authority music was the perfect gateway for us to go rebel. And granted, they had the straight edge movement too, but that doesn't mean that they weren't glorifying violence or self-harm in their music. Oh yeah, Bright Eyes has a song about ending up in the hospital because he tries to off himself. And I remember listening to that song a lot and glorifying it. And then ironically, some of these other bands, I can't remember if it was Bright Eyes or somebody else, but I remember like cutting yourself. That was like a thing that I started to do when I was 15. And I know for a fact that I was influenced by my music, because where else would I have gotten that idea? You don't just wake up one day and think, I think I'm gonna do this act of self-harm. No, it's because I'm a lonely teenager trying to figure out my place in the world, and I'm listening to this music where I'm glorifying these artists, and I think, wow, it's cool to be depressed. It's cool to have a cup of whiskey. You're like this tortured artist and this tortured soul, and it just seems so glamorous to me. And then Taking Back Sunday has a song called A Decade Under the Influence. I literally spent a decade under the influence, and I didn't get sober until I was 27. And then, of course, have had my moments and my relapses here and there where I've gone back to old MJ, my friend, because, that's all something that's being used to help our anxiety these days, and, promoted by the hippies and like love culture, right? But in reality, it's still a substance that can harm your mind and robs you of your clarity in thinking, and can make you pretty lazy, kind of like contribute to the failure to launch thing that we see in a lot of people. And again, not hating on anyone that lives with their parents or anything, because that's, doesn't necessarily have to mean or be a result of our substance abuse. I think that's also a result of a crappy economy and just like people being lost and seeing through some of the systems, and like sometimes that's better option than living with 5 strangers in a 2-bedroom apartment and having 3 jobs. So to each their own. But anyways, I just find this all very interesting, because as I was saying, I was a child that grew up going to the DARE program, being told not to mess with certain substances. And then when I reached puberty, it was all about emo music and punk rock concerts and mosh pits where you got thrown around and punched people. It was all about wearing song lyrics on your shirt that were sad. And then, like I said, I started to experiment with substances at that age, as is very normal. Every single person, not every person, but a lot of people I was going to high school with were also experimenting with things around that time. We were also going to the emo concerts and the punk rock concerts, and, wearing the black clothes and the black eyeliner and cutting our hair weird and dyed my hair black and all that fun stuff. And then I just find it very interesting that these lyrics I was listening to on repeat, like the song A Decade Under the Influence, for example, like close your eyes, just settle. I can't tell you how many times I've settled in my life, and with people that I settled for, which again, very common in hookup culture, like people just using substances and partying and blacking out or browning out, and then ending up with somebody at the end of the night. And then another song like Bright Eyes, like I think it's the song Lua, like What's So Simple in the Moonlight, that song, and A Lover I Don't Have to Love, like they're all about like empty love and just bodies. And now it's just so interesting to look at the way our culture and our generation has grown up and the behaviors of people, what we were doing or are doing, and just using each other, the used. So it's just very interesting, and I can't help but notice a connection between all of the music that I grew up on and a lot of my early childhood programming. So what do you guys think? Do you see a connection here? Do you want to help me out in the comments section? And just for fun, let's just see what kind of messaging these popular bands that we were saying on repeat, let's just see what we were repeating without even paying attention to what we were saying. And if they say everything that we see in the physical world is a result of what was first a thought, and then the thought became a word, and then the word became an action, and action became a full-blown manifestation and your personality and a set of behaviors. So if you're like, again, if you're constantly chanting this music and saying these things on repeat, you may not even be consciously aware of. It's not like you're trying to manifest depression, but like constantly saying it, constantly thinking about it, constantly worshiping it by going to these concerts and worshiping these artists who are saying it, your psyche is slowly being transformed by this stuff. And then MK Ultra, the list of substances in the Illuminati Formula for Mind Control Slaves article. Go look at that article. I'll link it in this description. But the bio, like in that article, there's like 3 pages of substances. So they were obviously using substances as a way to hypnotize people and make people easier to control and to influence. Why do they say you're under the influence? You are under the influence, not just of the drug, but you're under the influence of general mind control and the music that you're listening to, the television programming you're watching, the frequencies that you're listening to, the people that you're around. And then why do you think they talked about peer pressure in the DARE program? Because that's a big one. I mean, I don't know how many of you have ever tried to be like, have ever been sober curious, or you've tried to like let go of alcohol or something, and you go out with your friends and people are like, why aren't you drinking? Why aren't you drinking? You got to deal with that all night and be the weird one because you're not choosing to dumb yourself down or numb your senses. And people don't want to be the odd man out. And that's why I think more people are, you know, we continue to do what our peers are doing. Like if everybody else is going out, everybody else in your office is going out for happy hour. What are you going to do? Be the odd man out and not go? Are you going to be the weird one who doesn't order a drink? Well, I mean, I would. But that's also why I don't have a mainstream job and why I work for myself and why I don't attend concerts or any of these programs anymore, because I see through it. And then Astroworld's a great example. Like they were all like huddled around the stage and then getting pushed in, and then people literally suffocating during that concert. So I thank my lucky stars that when I was 15 attending all these concerts with the mosh pits that I didn't get hurt. But I remember how sweaty and gross it was. I remember I had the lead singer of one of the bands sign my sports bra, and I was like so sweaty that the only thing I had on was a sports bra, and I was like, oh, he's signing t-shirts, but I don't have a t-shirt. So I'm like, will you sign my sweaty ass sports bra? So yeah, that, you know, that was a thing. And the last thing I want to end with is, not only did a lot of us end up with substance abuse issues, and not only are a lot of us still addicted and don't even know that we're addicted because it's so normalized, but like, let me just leave you with this thought. This is what I don't understand, and what I couldn't admit to myself for decades. Like, something that you do every day to alter your mind and brain chemistry, how is that not an addiction? How is that not habit forming if you're doing it every day? Like, people say MJ is not habit forming, but you're doing it every day. That's what I'm talking about, mind control. We hear these phrases and then we just start to normalize them, and then we start to tell people, oh, it's not addictive, it's not addictive, even though I'm doing it every day, and even though my tolerance is getting lower. And if you're anything like me, you're somebody who might have started doing it once a week and then started doing it once at night, and then now all of a sudden it's at lunch and night. Now all of a sudden it's in the morning and at night and in the afternoon, and every time you go out with your friends, until it's a part of your life and a part of your freaking identity. Look at the mind control involved. I just wish I could tell people that, but I mean, we are so conditioned by everything. Like I said, I painted a picture how we were already primed in childhood, and then when we were adolescents listening to this type of music, and then we grew up and we saw it in pop culture. I mean, just look at the shows, the popular shows right now, and like how they're sneaking in all of this stuff into, like, they have to have certain like races or like representatives of all types of people in shows. And I'm all about that. Like, I think everybody should be represented, but then at what point is it just, are they trying to mass program people for the sake of pushing their higher agendas? Because let's not forget, if you know anything about Satanism, I think it's, I'm gonna mess this up, Baal, I don't know, but the goat character is half man, half woman, so that's Luciferian. And you know, I have my certain opinions about that whole movement, which I don't like to get political, but I can see it. I see a lot of things from both sides, right? And I'm more about like the individual. I don't like to see people get swept away into these thought streams and these narratives that aren't their own. I encourage people to think freely and see what feels right for you and do what feels right for you. But I think it's wrong that so many of us have been hypnotized while we've been under the influence, and then all the programming around us, music, media, television, has influenced our culture so much, and who we are, who we grow up to be, our actions, and then our mental health. Because it's taken me a while to get here, but mental health, now the mental health disorders that have resulted from these behaviors, this substance abuse, this constantly repeating lyrics about being sad and having anxiety. How many of us have anxiety now? And what's so mind-boggling to me is that if you've ever been to the doctor to get diagnosed for anxiety, it's so normalized to have anxiety, and then they start to call it a, what's it called? Chemical imbalance. And it is a chemical but imbalance because we are, not for the reasons you think. Why do we have chemical imbalances in the first place? Is it as a result of these depressing, anxious thoughts we're thinking about because we're repeating them in our heads when we're listening to music on repeat? Like, how many of you can't go a day without listening to music? Like, I know so many people about that. So the whole day you're just being programmed by whatever music you're listening to. So that's one thing. And I'm losing my train of thought right now. But we're being programmed by the music that we listen to, and so we've got all this anxious thinking, and then we've got cell phones at our fingertips, which are also messing with our dopamine, creating chemical imbalances. And then we've got food filled with synthetic chemicals, caffeine. We're running on caffeine, which stresses out your adrenals and pumps up your cortisol, which is your stress hormone. So we're primed to be stressed and anxious, and we're primed to have chemical imbalances. But instead of just saying like, okay, let's look at the diet. Are you spending time outside? Are you doing something that you love? What kind of music are you listening to? What are you filling your consciousness with? Are you taking time to take a step back from your media? Are you meditating? Are you breathing? Are you just being in nature, being in the sun? No, they don't ask you any of that. At least in my case, they did not. It's the first thing they say is, oh, you have a chemical imbalance. Take this questionnaire. These are you always late? Are you procrastinate a lot? Oh, you've got ADHD. Have you been sad for 2 weeks or more? Have you lost interest in your favorite activities? It's not because you have a crappy job that you don't like and because you're stuck in survival mode. No, it's because you are depressed and something's wrong with you. Something's wrong with you. So you need a pill. You need to go see a doctor for the rest of your life because it's wrong with you. So I will leave you with that. Thank you for watching this video. I hope I gave you something to think about today. And if anything, I hope that you'll be more mindful about what you listen to and what you are consuming, because in my experience, being mindful and setting boundaries with my media, music consumption has led to an overall happier life, feelings of peace internally, and I don't feel like I'm mind controlled doing or participating in agendas that are not my own. So thanks for watching. And if you want to work with me one-on-one, or I haven't talked about astrology or human design in this reading, but human design and astrology are also tools that I've used to help me break free from mind control and think for myself. And I work with people one-on-one. So if you're interested in that, you can follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Statements by Alex, or you could check out my free guide for gate kids and neurodivergent souls, which is in my description. And you can also learn more about my readings there. So thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.